So hey there YouTube, it's Doc's Motorcycle Service, coming at you live. Well, it's not really live, it's YouTube, but you got it figured out. So, I come to you today slightly disappointed in myself and with a dilemma. I'm going to ask you a question, I'm going to reach out to you. As a fellow mechanic, have you ever started something that was about this big of a project, and then it turned into this big of a project, this big of a project? Well, that's kind of what happened with me. We had a project come in here, and of course Donna, Hot Donna, 1986 FLST Heritage Softail. I'll throw some pictures up. She's on the beginning of this video. She came to me with a small problem. And I know the owner of this motorcycle had some goals, some aspirations, some dreams that he wanted to do to this bike, some stuff that he wanted to get working on with this bike. And he wanted an opportunity to do that. I think he planned to do that down the road. And all of a sudden it got here. And then in the matter of a few days, well, not a few days. Well, in a matter of a few days, some critical decisions were made that resulted in the bike being completely disassembled. I'll throw some pictures up here in just a second. So, yeah, we're not going to go into batteries today and electrical systems today. This is more or less an update video to let you know where we're at and what direction we're going in. So you started off on that little thing that was about this big. Donna came in. Donna was not charging the battery, and we tried to figure out what was wrong with it, and it turned into maybe this big of a problem. But while we were in there, we went off and, let's just say, boom. Okay, so long story short, back earlier in the year, the owner put a battery in Donna and put a battery in his everyday bike. And like I said, we're not going to get into batteries here. Weather and batteries is something you just really got to understand. But the biggest threat to a battery is weather. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in a small charging system video down the road. But here today, long story short, Donna's owner's main bike went through a battery. It was legit that it needed another battery. Middle of February, we'll talk about it in the next video. Battery's about 3-4 years old. Done. So a month later, Donna's battery goes out. So now we're about the beginning of March. And naturally assumes, it's safe to assume that battery puked. It's old. It went out. Stuff like that happens. So put a new battery in it, went down the road, everything went great, no problems. Kept it on a battery tender when I wasn't riding it, everything was perfect. Doing everything he should be doing to maintain this battery's integrity. So it goes rrr rrr when he hits the button, or instead of going rrr rrr, it goes rrr, and he goes down the road. So, long story short, he pulled it out, jumped on it, fired it up, sat in the garage, 15-20 minutes playing with the adjustments on the carburetor, getting everything just kind of tightened up a little bit, a little buttoned up from the winter storage season for a bike that he doesn't ride in the winter. Jumped on the damn thing, took off 20 miles up the road, pulled into a guy's shop, went in, said, "Hey, how you doing? Miss you, all right, gotta go." Went out and rah, battery's dead. So, I'm just taking a moment here because Shit like that pisses me off. When something is working and everything seems to be working fine, and then 20 minutes later or 20 miles later, something's wrong. It just blows my mind that shit like that happens. But I have to remember that I'm dealing with motorcycles. And motorcycles are like that. So anyway, but fortunately for him, he was in front of a guy's shop, a legitimate shop. And they pushed it around back, put it on a charger, got some amps in the battery, got it started, tested it. It indicated that there was no voltage coming out of the electrical system. I've gone a little long on this video, so I'm trying to tighten it up. But bottom line is that when they performed the test, the voltage regulator failed. And now the voltage regulator, if it's not getting power from the stator, aka alternator, on a motorcycle, then it's not going to indicate any voltage coming out of it. In order to have voltage come out of the voltage regulator, you've got to have voltage coming into the voltage regulator up here, and then it downs it and sends it out here to do what it's got to do. Okay, real quick, let's see if we can keep this under 45 seconds. Your battery on any vehicle, cold cranking amps, ding ding ding, that rings a bell, right? When you go to get a battery for anything, they ask you what's your cold cranking amps, what does your vehicle need to start it? Cold cranking amps. The battery comes like that. It has its cold cranking amps. It has its what I can do, whether it's gas, 4-cylinder, V8, diesel, whatever. The alternator, the stator on your motorcycle or your vehicle, it has one job. It replenishes the power drawn from the battery to start the vehicle and run the electrical system. So I guess it's really got two jobs. So once the battery does its one job, which is to start the motor, and the motor starts to turn, and belts are going like this, and pulleys are going like that, and alternators are going like this, and power's coming out of this thing from the alternator or the stator on a motorcycle, then juice is flowing to run your power windows. Beep beep, your horn, your radio, your CB, your whatever. If it has electricity going to it on a vehicle, your alternator or stator is what provides that and recharges your battery from where it was diminished during the starting process. So, okay, we got that. So, your stator alternator sends voltage to the voltage regulator, normally more than the vehicle needs. That's why it's called a voltage regulator. So the voltage regulator then regulates the voltage to the various spots on the vehicle that need it and replenishes the battery. So we tested the voltage regulator. There was no voltage coming out of the regulator. Well, that's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean the voltage regulator is bad. It just means that could be that there's no voltage coming in the other side of it. So, and we'll talk about how to test that later. So then we got down to the stator, and as we went to test the stator, we saw something that was kind of disappointing. So I don't know how well you can see this up here. I know sometimes things get a little fuzzy when you get too close to the camera. But if you don't recognize that, that is an electrical short. This is the voltage regulator that came off a Hot Donna. Okay, this is where it plugs into the stator, aka alternator, depending on what you want to call it. Normally sits on the front of the motorcycle, right under the handlebars, right where the frame turns down to go to the back. Plugs in there. This is the stator off of the motorcycle. This piece here mounts to the frame of the case. It mounts to the side of the engine case, and it stays stationary. And I'm not going to be able to do this, I don't think. Well, maybe I can. But then, while this is stationary, this looks like this facing out, turns. And that creates the electricity needed. But right here, can you see that? I don't know. Yeah, Linda's not here today, so I'm failing. So I don't think you can see that very well. I'll try to take some pictures of this. So, where the stator plugged into the voltage regulator, it was shorted out. We tested the actual mechanics, the rotor of the stator, and it tested fine. I've seen some that have been burnt to shit, okay? Down here on the copper, on the bands, I guess you might call them, they look like shit. I mean, they're melted all the hell. And we'll look at this some more in depth here in a little bit. But you remember Columbo? You go, just one more thing. Just one more thing. In my deduction of what happened, now don't y'all start calling me out about this shit, where those two plugs plugged in together, they shorted out. I think it was from oil. I know. Well, gosh, doggone it, goddammit now. Motor oil ain't connected. There ain't no connectivity. So electricity can't run through motor oil. Slow down, sport. Check your facts. True. Motor oil will not conduit electricity. But some of the additives they put in it will. Let me say that again. Some of the additives they put in it will. So check yourself. Know your road. Know all your information before you start pointing fingers. Okay? Don't give me no hate mail. I ain't got time for that shit. So long story short, it looked like motor oil got in there to me and shorted it out. There was a leak on the engine. So I made the suggestion. Let's pull the motor, refresh the motor, replace what needs to be replaced, put in a new gasket set, and put the motor back in. Because if you don't, $275 worth of parts, 7 hours to get into them, 3 days, 3 hours, 3 weeks, 3 years, I can't predict the damn future. That oil could get in there and it could leak again. And all of this has to be redone again. So the decision was made to go ahead and pull it apart. And as I'm talking, there's going to be pictures bouncing up. I'll show you some pictures as I go through here of what it looked like. But I'm going to tell you, this shit went down over about 3 days. From the time that the time that we made the decision that I was about to, I was about to tell you about 45 seconds ago, while I was down, the decision was made. From that decision right there, in about 3 days, this bike went to shit. It went to nothing touching each other. Matter of fact, the frame is sitting right here. The frame's right here behind me being stripped so it can go to the paint shop. While the motor was out, it sort of dawned on the owner of the bike that, maybe now is the time to do everything else that I've been wanting to do to the bike. Folks, let me tell you this. If you don't believe me, just listen to me. Every time you take something apart and then put it back together, you weaken it. Every time you take a bolt out of a bolt hole, you have an opportunity to strip that bolt or strip those threads. And when you're working on something that's, 96, 2006, 2016, plus 4, 34 years old, they don't make that shit no more. And those guys who have it, well, they know what they got and they're proud of it. So when you're working on your shit, don't take it apart just to be taking it apart. If you want to learn, go get an old beat up ass motorcycle from somewhere and learn on that. That's how I did. So, but my point is, all this point is to say this. There's nothing left of Donna right now. I'll show you some pictures. There's a table over here full of shit. And there's a table over there full of shit. And there's a lift right here full of shit. And the front forks are sitting back here in the corner behind me with the wheel on them. And underneath that table is the handlebars and the master cylinder and the front controls. She is so far apart, and that went down so damn quick, it'll make your head spin. So it was a good opportunity to do it with the COVID-19 thing going on. A lot of places are closed, a lot of the bars are closed, a lot of the restaurants are closed, a lot of the other places are closed, but you still have online stuff that you can go to. So the decision was made, strip her down and start putting all these things on her. So I just want to let you know where we're at, and then in the next video that you're going to see is we will take a tour of the garage and we will look at some paint stripper to get 34-year-old paint off of a frame without sandblasting it. So that's where you are. I appreciate you hanging out. Handle your business. Stay tuned. Subscribe. Remember, this is Doc's Motorcycle Service. We ain't nothing fancy here. We're a 2-car garage attached to a house, and we like to pedal with motorcycles and do shit and save money and learn something along the way. So stick around. YouTube, we'll see you later.